Greetings, and thank you for choosing Paiko for your two-player turn-based strategy needs. I'm Mike Irving, lead designer on the Paiko team, and this training video is designed to teach you the rules of Paiko, which should start at about the 2-minute mark. Paiko pits you in a one-on-one duel to outbuild, outposition, and outmaneuver your opponent with its new style of turn-based strategy, specifically built to promote intuition rather than laboriously prognosticating 5 turns in advance. That makes it less daunting than chess, yet still has more grit than checkers, and it feels a bit like shogi meets go in play. As you play, you'll find you'll be able to create your own balanced play style, helping you foster a long-term interest. To supplement this video guide, you can find further rulebooks and cheat sheets online at www.paikogame.com. It's especially useful to pull up either of the two quick guides, seen here or here, to supplement this video. You can also find everything you need to print and play the game yourself back at home at paikogame.com under the Play the Game section, or just by clicking on the print here. Following videos will show a simple sample game, discuss frequently asked questions and other such concerns for rules lawyers, and finally showcase a best 2 out of 3 match between two of our playtesters. This video is being filmed using the alpha to our Paiko Online. More information available in the forums. Please don't mind the quirks. So, let's jump right in. The board has 3 parts: your home ground, the middle grounds, and your opponent's home ground. You win by gaining 10 points. You gain 1 point for each of your tiles currently in the neutral grounds, and 2 points for each of your tiles in your opponent's home ground. Tiles in your home ground don't do any points for you. Both players start with 3 each of 8 types of tiles, totaling 24, which you can see here. To start, play a game of chance like rock, paper, scissors to determine who's white and who's black. White plays first with fewer tiles in their starting hand, and black goes second with more. Specifically, in the beginning, white will draw 7 tiles. Then, following that, black draws 9, and finally, white draws 1 surprise tile. So in the end, white will have 8 tiles and black 9. This isn't shown properly in the alpha. All tiles in Paiko are always face up. On your turn, you have one of 3 options. You can either draw more tiles, deploy tiles from your hand onto the board, or shift tiles already on the board. To draw tiles, you pick any 3 tiles of your choice from your tile reserve and add them to your hand. Then, on your next turn, you'll be able to play these just like any others. Now, for black's turn, black is going to deploy a tile. You can deploy a tile anywhere on your home ground, or anywhere that you threaten. Each of the tiles creates a pattern of threat around them, as you can see in this rules reference from our website. You can deploy tiles anywhere on your home ground, like we saw earlier, or anywhere you threaten, so that you can't deploy directly into the middle grounds or directly onto your opponent's home ground. You can deploy in other places you threaten. However, you cannot deploy either on the black squares or anywhere that your opponent threatens. So even though we threaten the square, we can't place there because our opponent threatens it as well. We can place here because we threaten it and our opponent does not. So let's clear the board and talk about shifting tiles. And you can shift tiles already on the board. Most tiles, like sword here, can shift 2 squares non-diagonal. That means you can move them 1, 2 squares, or 1 and 1, so 1 square down. Like so. Now, shifting has several advantages over normally deploying the tiles. One of the key advantages is you can move directly into opponent's threat, unlike deploying where you cannot deploy anywhere your opponent threatens. However, that having been said, you cannot shift through opponent's tiles or your own tiles. You cannot shift to or through these black squares in the center. and you cannot shift through any squares that would capture your piece if it were to stay there. Let's talk about capture now. Capturing tiles isn't the main point of Paiko, like it is in checkers or chess, but you can still use it to your advantage. To capture one of your opponent's tiles, you threaten it twice. You can see currently this white sword has one threat on it from our black sword. So when we place this second tile, which will threaten it again, it gets captured. Captured tiles permanently go to the discard pile, unceremoniously called the graveyard here. And after capturing, your opponent, whose tile just got captured, chooses a tile for you to draw from your tile reserve. This may seem a little bit backwards, but it's a good way of keeping the game more balanced. Remember that capturing doesn't directly grant you any points, so though it's a nice way to get an edge, it won't ever win you the game. Now let's reset the board and talk about how you can prevent your tiles from being captured by using cover. Your tiles in cover require 3 threat to capture rather than the normal 2. This lotus tile here will cover in a circle around it. Black will do something at random. And now we can see because white is going to be covered here, they'll be able to move their sword tile down here. Even though it's being threatened once, twice by these tiles, it can happily sit. That having been said, black can opt to capture it this round by giving it a 3rd threat from this bow here, and it still gets captured. So this is what happens in any amount of cover. If this tile were being covered by 3 or 4 other tiles, the effect is the same. Any tile in cover requires 3 threat to capture. Any tile out of cover requires 2. One other nicety is any tile on your home ground is considered covered. So that means it's especially hard for your opponent to capture tiles on your own home ground. So just to recap, on your turn you can either draw 3 tiles, deploy a tile from your hand onto the board anywhere that you threaten and your opponent doesn't, or you can shift a tile 2 squares non-diagonal into anywhere that isn't going to capture you if you stay. Lastly, any tile at the end of your turn that has more than 2 threat will get captured, unless they're in cover, in which case it takes 3. Now let's talk about each of the individual tiles and what each one will do. The sword tile is one of the most basic tiles. It threatens in a circle around it, and can move too, like standard. Next up is the earth tile. The earth tile threatens 2 in any direction from itself, but unlike the sword and most tiles which can move 2, earth can only move 1 tile. Air can't move any tiles, but it threatens in the same pattern a knight can move in chess, which makes it excellent for quickly spreading your pieces around the board. Bow can move the standard 2 tiles, and it threatens very far in front of itself, but only in one line. It goes a blank square followed by 1, 2, 3 squares of threat. As you've probably noticed, some tiles have a asymmetric threat. So in other words, they'll threaten more in one direction than another, such as this bow here. Now these tiles can be rotated. You can rotate them either before you deploy them, or you can rotate them for free during any of their moves. So if we wanted to move this, we can move it out this way with a rotation. Or optionally, you can spend your turn to move it and don't move it anywhere, but just rotate the tile. So that counts as a move to rotate it in place. Let's talk about some of the more situational tiles. These sides, this isn't programmed in yet, but immediately when they're deployed on the board, they're able to shift 2 squares in any direction. So we could deploy it here, and the side could shift 1, 2 down here and face any direction. This gives it an excellent amount of mobility. This is something that only gets on its first turn though. Anytime after that, it needs to shift to normally like any other tile would. Water is another tile like these. Let's replace the board so we have a water. There we go. Water's special moving ability, oh, by the way, water will threaten on the diagonals and covers anything on the straights. Now the ability of water is it can either shift to, like most other tiles can, or you can optionally redeploy it somewhere else, like you're deploying it for the first time. So if we wanted to shift our water down here, we can. The other thing it's able to do is shift down into its own thread. So this is, in almost all cases, like moving too. There's only a few cases when it becomes different. Last but not least are Lotus and Fire. Lotus is a very peculiar tile. It's able to deploy anywhere on the board. So even in places that you don't threaten or that your opponent does. It also covers itself, so automatically it takes 3 opponent threat to capture it. However, it doesn't provide you any points towards victory. So you can see even though it's out here in the neutral grounds, we don't get any points for it. And also, we can't ever shift it. Once we place it, it's stuck, much like the air tile. And last but not least is Fire. Fire creates an enormous amount of threat all in one direction, which makes it a very useful tile. However, it has 2 downsides. The threat that fire produces threatens your own tiles as well, so your own tiles can be captured by these. And it threatens itself, so it'll be captured by only 1 more threat, or 2 if it's in cover. Like most tiles, fire shifts too, and one rule that becomes especially important when fire hits the field. You can never play your turn such that one of your own tiles will get captured. So you cannot play in such a way that you move a fire in to capture your opponent's tiles as well as your own. Your own tiles would get captured first, so to speak, and that would be illegal. And also with tiles that create cover, such as water or Psy, you can't move them away if it would result in your own tile getting captured. So no tile left behind. As a final recap, one easy to forget but very important thing, you win by getting 10 points, 1 point for each of your tiles on the neutral grounds, and 2 points for each of your tiles on your opponent's home ground. If you have any questions or would like to chat with us, please join us on our forums at paikogame.com. We would love to chat about this, so come on by. And we look forward to seeing you there.